I was dreaming of bigger things and wanna leave my old life behind. Thunder.
You're listening to the Create What You Speak podcast. My intention is to change the lives of 1 million women, one podcast at a time. Now let's get started.
Thunder, feel the thunder.
My name is Sloan Fremont, and today I'm going to talk to you about placeholders. Placeholders. Okay, so as I was thinking about the show for this week, this one really got me. I think we all have a lot of these in our life, these placeholders, but we don't really realize what they are or what they're doing to us. And as I was thinking about this in my own life, I just realized how big of an impact this had on me, and not in a good way. So that's what I wanted to get into this week, is this topic of placeholders. But before I get into that, I want to welcome our new sponsor, Body Built by Love with Steph Hindle. If you guys, I'm serious, if you're sick of dealing with weight issues, especially this time of year, and want to approach your body with the same concepts we talk about on this show, Body Built by Love is for you. Check out the link in the show notes and use the code Sloan for your custom discount. All right, let's get into the show about placeholders. So, like I said, as I was thinking about this topic the other day, this is how it came up for me. I realized I had been waiting for someone to show back up in my life. And back on episode 76, which was Blame, I told the story about how I met the guy this summer, and we had this weekend in Florida, and we really clicked, and we just had this great time. We had seen each other, multiple times, talked pretty much every day since then. And he disappeared from my life, not once, but twice. And on that episode, that Blame episode, I talked through the process of where I finally came to terms with the fact that I'd been blaming myself for him leaving when it had absolutely nothing to do with me, and it in no way was my fault. And it actually it was all to do with him. And in that episode, I shared that he had disappeared, and then he came back like 3 weeks later, and basically he had been out of the country and gotten really sick and was just finally getting back on track, and, okay, fine, whatever. Again, not my fault and nothing I could do about it. But that was the point of that episode, was me talking through how I worked through that and came to that conclusion. But what I didn't share with you, because it hadn't happened yet, after that episode, we talked then for a couple weeks, and then he disappeared again. And so that's 2 times he's disappeared, and I haven't heard from him since. And I could go into a whole episode and more on that and the why and my opinions and all of that. But honestly, there's no value in that. There just isn't. And it's what I want to talk about today is I think more important. Because what I really realized from this second disappearance was that after he left, it's like I had created this placeholder for him. Like I was waiting for him to come back. And I think especially because he had disappeared once, and I'd kind of, okay, I get what you're saying. But so the second time, I was waiting again. And I didn't do this on purpose, obviously, right? Like, I didn't say, okay, I'm going to wait for him, and here we are, right? No, it was like, this happened behind the scenes subconsciously in the back of my mind. Like, and I felt, I think, so many emotions about him leaving. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I know he'll come back. And so I was leaving this space for him, which was keeping me in this waiting and limbo mode. And so keeping this placeholder for him was like leaving the light on for him. That's how I could explain it. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but years ago, Motel 6 used to have this advertisement where they would say, I remember this guy, his name was Tom Bodette, and he would say, "We'll leave the light on for you." Like, that was the Motel 6 advertisement. Like, I don't even know what year this was, probably like, maybe, I don't even know, 10 years or more probably, but apparently it was a really good advertisement, because I still, to this day, I can hear that guy's voice. "This is Tom Bodette from Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you." It was something like that. I can still remember it, and I can hear it in my mind. And when I was thinking about what placeholder meant, that's the best way I could explain it. It was like I was leaving the light on for him, and really, but why? Like, that didn't feel good to me. So why was I doing that? Like, why was I waiting essentially for him? And so in that waiting, as I was looking back on what that placeholder meant and how that felt for me. Like in the waiting, it's like I was expecting the text that never came, right? Or I was expecting the phone call that never came, or the reappearance back into my life that just never came. And while I was waiting on that, it kept me stalled, like in this holding pattern and feeling stuck, but then also like, why the fuck isn't he reaching out to me? Like, why this again? Like, why again? I don't understand. And I think we've probably all felt that way when someone's disappeared from our life. Like why? Why didn't you just have the fucking balls to say to me, hey, I'm not in a place to continue this? Or I don't even know what the fucking excuse is, and it really doesn't matter, but why weren't you human enough to say to me, this isn't working for me, bye, right? And I think I talked about this on last week's episode. I can't remember, but I recently watched Eat, Pray, Love. And I don't know why. It's an old movie. And, for some reason I decided I wanted to watch it. And there was this part in the movie where after Elizabeth Gilbert gets divorced and she immediately goes to another guy, and she's, it's not working obviously. And she's talking about how, she always just went from one guy to the next. And then she decides to go on this, trip that leads to the book and all this. But in the movie, she leaves to go to India or Italy, I think is the first trip. She leaves to go to Italy. And the guy that she had been seeing right after the divorce, she had emailed him or called him or something, and he never responded. And so she calls him, or he finally calls her back sometime later. And she's like, why didn't you respond? Like, why didn't you reach out to me? And he said, because if I didn't respond, that meant the conversation was still open and we could still continue it. I didn't want to have the conversation where we closed the door. And I don't know if that's why people in this day and age do that, if they really are just like chickening out and they don't want to actually have to end something, or if it's because people think that they can just leave the door open and that's the way to do it. I don't know. But I remember when I was watching that movie, that struck me, watching it all these years later, that he said that, because I think I would have to think some of that still goes on today. And so when I'm thinking about placeholder in that, even on the, while I'm in this quote waiting mode, I think I kind of had an aspect of that too. Like, well, if he's not reaching out to me, then the door is still open, right? But that's not healthy, right? That's not good. That's not how I want to be, or I don't even want to give someone the courtesy to do that because you didn't have the fucking courtesy to tell me that, you were done. And so obviously all of this felt terrible, right? And even talking to you about this and admitting it and feeling again feels terrible, because I know I deserve so much better than this. And if this has happened to you, or if you've gone through this, you deserve so much better than this too, right? And I think, as I was putting the show notes together for this and when I really realized this is what I was doing, it wasn't on purpose. It definitely wasn't conscious. It was happening behind the scenes, and this leaving the light on for him, it's like I just naturally went there. And I didn't like that either, that it just that I subconsciously gave somebody that courtesy when they weren't doing the same to me. And so, obviously I'm in shock because he did this again. This was twice. And but again, as I talked about in the blame episode, if I learned anything from that, I knew, at least this time, not to blame myself, because it absolutely was not my fault. And so I was thinking about this and acknowledging it, and I could recognize what I was doing. There was relief for me in that, because I was like, okay, wait a minute, I don't have to do this. I can choose differently. I can look at things differently. I can think about things differently. I can, when those thoughts come up, I can focus on something else and get my mind off of it. And, luckily I did have this enough self-awareness to recognize this, and it didn't take me, that long to figure it out, but it still wasn't easy. And it was still something I thought maybe some of you listening go through. And so, I wanted to talk about that this week, so that my hope is that it helps you too. And so I was also, again, as I'm thinking through this, as my analytical, logical mind done, I'm like, how much do we really do this in other areas of our life, right? Like, how often do we keep placeholders for not only the lovers, but the job or the money or the better body or whatever it is that just keeps us from living our full potential, right? I think these placeholders they keep us in suffering, like with these painful thoughts that circulate through our minds, or the waiting. Waiting in general is not fun and not pleasant. And so when it's self-imposed waiting, I think it's even worse, because we add not only the waiting element to it, but all the other terrible things that our minds come up with about why we should be waiting, or, all of this. And then we also have that element of fear that keeps us keeps us from doing something different because, well, I'm waiting, right? So I shouldn't be doing something different, or I shouldn't be thinking about this differently, or whatever, right? And I think we've all fallen into that trap of, when I lose X pounds, I'll what, right? I'll what? When I lose weight, I will what? Be happier, attract the right partner, buy some specific kind of clothes, or finally win someone's approval, right? Like the weight coming off and the better body, that's the placeholder, right? And because we're dependent on that, it's like we don't want to truly begin living because we're too busy waiting. And or what about money, right? When I have more money, I'll do what? I'll travel more. I'll feel more secure. I'll finally stop, the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, like whatever it is. But money's the placeholder there. And that one I think is so easy to use as an excuse for why your life is on hold, because we don't even try to go past that. We just accept defeat in, thinking we don't have enough money. And I think there's, if we're always looking at the lack and always finding lack and searching for lack and expecting lack, that's what we're going to get. But it's shifting that mindset into abundance, even when you can't maybe see it right in front of you, that really starts that process. And that one I know to be true because I've done that in my own life. I've done that. I do, sometimes I do this little exercise with myself where I'll say, okay, universe, bring me $1,000 in 10 days. No real plan, right? No thinking about how, and none of this. And I did this end of November, and I asked for $1,000 in 10 days. I think I got up to a little over 900. So it wasn't quite 1,000, but who gives a shit, right? It was still 900 extra dollars I didn't expect, right? So when we start switching to that, out of that lack into that abundance, that's when things change. And then on the job, right? If we're using the job as our placeholder, when I have a better job, I'll what? I'll be more respected. Finally doing the work I love, right? Move to the city, whatever it is. And again, the job is a placeholder here. And the thing about living in life is we're free to change our perception about anything we want at any time, right? We can do that. We do have the choice to do that. And, if you want to be more respected, one thing you can do is start to envision what that would feel like. What does respect feel like to you? If you felt that way, if somebody is respecting you, or if you don't think you're doing the work that you love, being able to find little pockets here and there of things that you enjoy and focus on that. Right? Focusing on that instead of the things that you hate. That's such a perception shift that starts to, I think, get us out of a placeholder mentality. And again, the good thing about living and about this life is we have a choice in how we feel and how we perceive what's going on around us. And really, once we do that and we start to look at things differently, literally there is no other choice but for things to change. And I've seen this time and time again in my own life, and I know this to be true. Okay, so let's leave that thought right there, and I'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to Create What You Speak, now sponsored by Steph Hendel and her Body Built by Love community, where women around the world are realizing that they are not broken and are losing the weight they've been struggling with for years through learning to love themselves again.
All right, so back to our topic of placeholders for this week. So before the break, I was talking about how we keep ourselves in this holding pattern of waiting to really live while we're waiting for our placeholder to show up, right? Whether the placeholder is the better body, the relationship, the job, or whatever. I think if we're not careful, we can waste our lives away waiting on our placeholders. And we never really end up living because we're using the placeholder not showing up as the excuse, right? Because the relationship isn't here, because the job, or because the body, whatever it is, because the placeholder hasn't shown up. We tell ourselves we can't live the way we want to. And that just isn't true, right? That just isn't true. And we can live how we want right this instant if we choose. And it's really our own perception and limiting beliefs that hold us back. And so one of the flip side on this topic of placeholders is we do also, again, maybe not consciously, but we do also use placeholders positively. Especially when we have something to look forward to, right? When we're excited about something. And when we're excited for something to come, we're working towards a goal maybe that feels good to us, or anything that serves us in a positive way, that's a great way to use a placeholder, right? So I'm not saying that that placeholders are always bad. There are times when, if we allow ourselves to feel good about them, that they'll help propel us forward. And so, some examples of that. Maybe you have a placeholder for a big trip coming up that you're planning for the future, or maybe you're going to school and you have an idea of a job that you would love to do, or a hobby that you love, right? You can keep a placeholder for that to see where it takes you, right? Like the excitement about the trip, or the excitement about the new job, like whatever that may shape up for you to be. And all those are amazing and wonderful things. And obviously those are things that I would encourage you to keep going with. But the difference between when a placeholder is serving you and when it's really sucking the life out of you is how you feel when you think about it, right? So a placeholder that keeps you waiting, like I was saying, for the guy to show back up, obviously that's terrible, and it's not serving me in any possible good way, right? But a placeholder that keeps you in expectation and like this wonder is a totally different experience. Like the travel, like I mentioned, like one of my goals in 2020 is to go to Cuba. I want to go to Cuba. And that's exciting for me. And I have a placeholder for that, right? Like I have a placeholder for that excitement for, and I just hit my mic and it knocked something out. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. I hit the mic. I got excited when I was talking. I was talking about, so the placeholder for Cuba, for example, could be that's good. That's positive, right? I'm looking forward to that. But the placeholder for, is the guy going to come back? Not positive. I keep hitting my mic. Like, what's my deal? I'm like really like throwing my hands up in the air as I'm explaining this. And I wish you could see me, cause you would probably be laughing. But anyway, so that's the other point I wanted to make about placeholders is there are times when they can serve you. They can be positive. And again, a placeholder that keeps you in that expectation and excitement and wonder that's a good thing, obviously, right? The way it makes you feel really determines how it serves you. And so obviously when I realized I was keeping a placeholder for the guy that disappeared, I caught myself. I still catch myself. And, I was like checking my phone, or I was, wake up in the morning to have a text, right? That kind of stuff. No more. We're done. I'm done with that. We're done here. This isn't like the way I'm doing things anymore. And, in my mind, I had to draw the line and be like, wish you the best, but bye. I can't put myself through this anymore. And we were still connected on social media, and I deleted them. I was like, I'm done. I'm not watching this anymore. I'm not deleting this in defiance of you. I'm deleting this because I no longer want to subject myself to this. And I can't and will not do that to myself anymore. So this week, as you move forward, I would encourage you to look in your own life and see if you're keeping a placeholder for something or someone that doesn't serve you, right? Like, are you keeping the light on for someone that just doesn't feel good to you anymore, right? And I think it's just time to let that go so you can move into a space of feeling better. And because we all deserve so much more than playing that shitty waiting game, right? We all deserve so much more. And so this week, as you move forward, take a look and see what comes up for you. And when I was thinking about this in my own life, I also realized that I just had to stop settling for this. I had to stop settling for this behavior within myself, because he wasn't doing anything, right? Obviously, that was part of the problem, is he literally wasn't doing anything. But I had to stop accepting that behavior within myself, because I had a part in this. And that was really what it was for me, like drawing that line, like, I'm not doing this anymore. I deserve better than this. And, so do you, right? So when we're holding on to these things that don't serve us, they're taking up too much space, and they're taking up the space for something better to come in. So let's all agree not to do that anymore. All right, so I'll do a quick recap for this week's show, talk about the songs I chose, and close us out. All right, so this week was really about taking a look at our lives and seeing where we may be waiting to live up to our full potential because we're keeping a placeholder for someone or something, right? We're keeping that light on, as Tom Bodette said, for someone to come back, but in all that waiting, it's making us feel like shit, right? It's keeping us on hold. It's stopping us from living our life. And so why do we keep doing that, right? Why? And, like I said earlier, I think placeholders aren't always bad. We can definitely have those spots that we're reserving for things that are fun and exciting. But the real difference here is when a placeholder is serving you and when it's sucking the life out of you is how you feel when you think about it, right? A placeholder that keeps you waiting feels terrible and isn't going to serve you. Obviously, that is very obvious, but for some reason we still do it. And I think maybe it's for you, if that's happening for you, maybe it's subconsciously like it was for me. And the placeholder, the difference, the other side of that is a placeholder that keeps us in that expectation, like being like a child, like, oh my God, I'm so excited for this, right? Like that's totally different, and that can motivate and inspire you. And so again, going back to the way it feels can help you determine how it serves you. So really the takeaway, I think, for all of us today is to just, stop keeping the light on for those placeholders that aren't good for us and make us feel so bad. And, we're moving into 2020, a totally new decade. I mean, a new year is a great time to reset, but I feel like a new decade, like, enhances that, like, so much. It's like, it's like when you get a new notebook or a new planner or a new, like, whatever, right? It's just a reset. And that's what I would like to offer all of us as we move into 2020 is just let's stop settling for this, not only the behavior from others, but within ourselves. Like, let's stop putting ourselves through this punishment and this suffering and really believing that now is our time, right? Now is the appointed time for us to be happy, right? Today is the day. No more waiting. Today is the day for all of us. All right, so songs for this week. All right, so I want to say something about these songs before I explain them. And, a lot of times when I talk on here, I'm giving you the social media side of things, right? Like the Instagram page that you see of somebody that's perfect, or the Facebook page that you see, again, that's perfect, quote, perfect. And behind the scenes that ain't real. That shit is not real, because I know that person and that is not how their life is, right? So, and my goal with this podcast is always to give you, work through my own stuff in my own life and share those stories so that they can hopefully help you. Like, that's always my intent with this. And so I never want to show you that side of me crying in the bed, because, that's not the point of this. And it's also not, there's no value in seeing that, right? I talk about some of that. I go through things, but I don't often show you that side where I'm struggling. And so this week when I picked the songs, I actually wanted to let myself have a moment to actually, like, be a human and really feel that struggle, right? Like, actually really be like, instead of just trying to always take the high road, like, I am a person, and sometimes I just need to be like, middle fingers in the air, like, fuck you. Like, I didn't deserve that, right? And so that was my intent with the choices of this song this week, to actually let you see the human side of me and be a human and feel. Because sometimes that we can try to put these positive feelings, we can try to get out of the always making ourselves feel happy. And I did that for a long time, but I've also come to finally realize that sometimes I just have to feel it and just go through the ugliness, the crying, the whatever it is. And because I'll get there faster if I can just feel it and move on from it, right? Other than trying to, the other side of that is sometimes I'll try to just pretend it's okay, and deep down it's not. And so that's really long-winded, but I felt the need to explain that and just talk through that side today. So, all right, so songs that I chose. The intro song is Why by Mr. Wives. And so in this song, she's talking about basically like, why did you leave? Like, why, right? And that's how I feel about the guy. Why? Like, why? And so the lyrics are, I turn up my speakers so I can drown my thoughts just a little bit quicker. Dancing barefoot in the dead of winter so that I can numb this heart that's full of splinters, right? How often we've all felt that, a heart full of splinters, right? And then she says, they say time heals all wounds, but these clocks are at a standstill, right? And that goes back to the placeholder, right? Keeping the light on, like when you're trying to pass the time and heal, but we're really not able to because we're waiting. We're in that placeholder stage. And the lyrics go on, I'm counting every second that you're not here, but only in my dreams do you appear. Am I allowed to lay down my smile and be just bitter for a while? And be bitter just for a while. Am I allowed to lay down my smile and be bitter just for a while? And that's where I'm at right now. Like, I'll get over this and it's fine. it's not fine, but I'll get over it. But I need a minute to just be a fucking human and be pissed off about it, feel the feelings, and then that's it, right? And move on. So that's why I chose this song this week, Why by Mr. Wives. I think it fits really very well with this topic of placeholders. And again, you know, when we're time heals, but when I would say when we're in the placeholder mode, that's not true, because we're holding on to something and we're not allowing ourselves to heal. Okay, outro song. I've played this before, but it fits this topic. It's Why Did You Run by Judah and the Lion. And so the song is about, I read an article about this, and it's about when he was younger, his mom, apparently his parents were getting divorced. It was a really bad time. His mom ended up, you know, in jail, I think, for drinking and driving or something. And she called him, and it was just a very difficult time. But the song is Why Did You Run? And it says, so it starts out, so there I was, a defenseless middle kid, crying out for the right words to say. Sorry, I can't do anything at all. So I hung up and called you. And because you were the one I needed. And why did you run? And again, I think we can all probably have somebody in our lives we would ask that question to. So that was Why Did You Run, Judah and the Lion. All right, so that's it this week for our topic of placeholders. I would love to know what you think of the episode. If you have questions, anything you want me to cover on a future episode, I'd love to hear from you. My email is sloanfremont.com, and my website is sloanfremont.com. You can always go to the website, find previous episodes. You can go to the Web Talk website as well and find all the previous episodes on there. Also in iTunes and iHeart as well. So if you have questions, I would love to hear from you. My Instagram is also Sloan Fremont. And if you like the podcast, please remember to subscribe, rate, review, tell all your friends, and tell everyone about it. Abracadabra, now go forth and create what you speak.
'Cause you were the one